Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 Total Telephony webinar. Thank you for joining today. Okay, so we'll just go through some introductions first of all. So my name's Sam Connor. I'm part of the sales team here at Interface. We're Bitrix24 Gold Partners. So we specialize in the Bitrix24 software. And we're based in the UK, the US and Hong Kong, and we offer a full range of services to help you with Bitrix24. So starting off, we offer pre-sale support, so we can help you to analyze your requirements, see if Bitrix could be a good fit for what you're trying to achieve. And if it is, we offer a full range of implementation services, so we can really help you to get the Bitrix24 system set up exactly how you need it to work for your business. If you're interested in the self-hosted edition, we offer our own hosting service for you, and we can provide ongoing dedicated support and comprehensive training to help you get the most value out of the Bitrix24 system. Okay, so if you are new to the Bitrix24 system, if you're coming to today's webinar to get some more information about Bitrix24, let's just cover some of the main aspects of the Bitrix24 system. So first of all, Bitrix24 is essentially a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 35 different tools that you can use to help you to manage your business. And there are over now 11 million customers around the world that use the Bitrix24 system. And the system is available in two different editions. So we have the Bitrix24 Cloud, and then we also have the Bitrix24 self-hosted solution. And prices start from approximately $49 per month for a cloud-based system. And for a self-hosted system, for the starting off at the Business 50 package, that is priced at $2,990 for year one, and then in year two and ongoing annually, you will have to pay a renewal fee, which is approximately 25% of the license fee to continue to use your on-premise system. Okay, so today's webinar is Total Telephony. So we'll be covering all of the key areas of Bitrix24 that you can use to integrate your telephone systems into Bitrix24. And we'll also see how we can use the built-in Bitrix24 phone system. And that's one of the key reasons why you should use Bitrix24 for telephony. There is a built-in out-of-the-box phone system. So all you need to do is rent a number, and then you can start receiving calls straight into Bitrix and making outbound calls directly through the system. So it's really simple to set up a rented number through Bitrix. But it's also possible to integrate an existing PBX. So if you want to integrate your own phone lines and feed those into Bitrix, we have the ability to do that as well. And we'll see how we can integrate telephone calls. And this is really powerful with the CRM system. So we can record calls directly inside the CRM, and we can also make calls directly through the system. So that integration with the CRM is one of the key benefits of the Bitrix24 telephony module. We'll see how we can do reporting as well. So there are different dashboard reports that you can set up. And in terms of the cost, if you're renting a Bitrix number, in terms of the capital to invest, it's a very low setup cost for the integration. Okay, so in today's webinar, we'll be covering two specific ways we can use telephony inside Bitrix24. So starting off, we'll look at the Bitrix telephony option. So that's option one, and essentially that is renting a Bitrix24 number. The second option is an integration. So whether that's integrating using the SIP connector or if building an API to connect with your phone provider, those are some options. But essentially, the option two is to integrate your existing phone lines into Bitrix. Okay, so first of all, then option one we're going to look at first of all is Bitrix telephony. So we'll see how we can set this up and how we can then set up our own virtual phone system. And then we'll take a look at how that integrates with the CRM module as well. Okay, so let's go into our Bitrix24 system first of all. And what we can see on the left-hand side, to set up a rented number through Bitrix, we want to go to our telephony module first of all. So on the left-hand side, we can click in the telephony area. That will bring us into our module. Now, if you already have any numbers that exist inside the system, you will see those here on the left-hand side. So we can see in our Bitrix system, we already have 2 numbers that are set up inside here. But if we wanted to rent a brand new number using the Bitrix telephony option, this is what we need to do. So first of all, we go to the rent a number feature here. So this blue button here, rent a number, this then opens up the page where what we need to do is select the country that we want to have a number rented for. So for example, if I want to have a UK number, I can click on the UK country, and then it's going to give me the different options that I have to choose the type of number. So depending on the country, you might be able to, as we can see here, have a local number. If it's a mobile, national, or a toll-free, there's different options in different countries. So let's say if I wanted to have a local number in the UK, then what I can do is I could then select the region essentially that I want to purchase a number for. Okay, so inside here, then I could go into here and choose that number, and we can see all I would need to do now is press the rented number there, and it's going to charge me approximately $6 per month for the renting of that number. Now it does vary. Usually it is around $4 to $6 per month when we rent that number, and there is on some countries a connection fee. So that's something just to point out. So you may be charged an additional amount as a one-off connection fee. And with that monthly payment there for $6, all inbound calls to that number are included in that package, and you are charged per minute based on the country you are calling to on outbound calls. So that is something to bear in mind, and something you need to budget for is that outbound cost. So depending on the country you're calling to, you'll be charged per minute, and we will add the call rates into the Zoom chat box later on towards the end of the demonstration. One other thing to point out, if you are going to rent a Bitrix24 number, is if I say select Germany here, then you will need to provide identification. So first of all, here you can see that connection cost. So on top of the $6 per month here, there is also a $5 connection cost. But also what I want to point out is this here. So this is very important. If you are going to rent a number through certain countries, you do need to have a valid postal address for that location, and you have to submit that. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to rent that phone number, and it will be disconnected if you have rented the number. So that's something just to bear in mind if you are wanting to have maybe numbers across multiple countries in the world. Okay, so once we've rented those numbers, what we need to have is a balance. So in the account balance here, you need to have some credit. So when we are renting the numbers, it's going to take from that balance when we're renting every month. And for outbound calls, you have to have a balance to be able to make outbound calls, so it can take the money from your balance. But once we have got the numbers set up here, then what we can do is we can then configure our numbers for essentially an inbound call center. So we do have a lot of clients that use Bitrix for the telephony modules, and it can be really powerful in terms of call routing. So let's take a look at that in some more detail. Okay, so on our settings here, so this is the number we've rented. And now on the left-hand side, we can see all the different options that we have for configuring our number. So first of all, what we can select here is some welcome music. So we can decide when the person rings, do we want to play some music? You could also add a greeting message as well. So if we go into the other settings here on the hold music, you could add a welcome message. Okay, so you can have a message at the start. If the client is waiting, then you could add different messages or recordings. So you can customize here those welcome and hold messages. Now, what is really nice with the telephony here is the option to set up an IVR menu. So depending on your license, this will either limit the number of options you have here. But essentially with this, what we can do is we can set up different options for the inbound caller. So we can really route the call to the correct user, to the correct department, based on who that person is wanting to speak to. So let's say, for example, if for option 1, we could then forward this to the sales team. But if we choose option 2, then what we could do is we could forward this to the technical support team. And so we can add users within Bitrix to their relevant groups. So we'd have all the sales staff in the sales group and all of the technical support staff in the technical support group. So when the customer rings up, then they have those options there, 1 for sales, 2 for support. And to make sure they understand this, we can have a message relayed to the customer. Okay, so you can type out your message here, and then you can choose how that message gets relayed to the client. So we can choose the language here, we can choose the speed, and also the volume that that message gets relayed. So you can add that information into there. Or if you want to, this is quite popular, you could simply upload an audio file. So if you want to just have that message that you've already pre-recorded, you could then upload that into the system. But the IVR menu is really powerful because it just means when clients are calling into the system, they can be routed very efficiently to the correct area of the business. So you're providing a very efficient and customer service in terms of the actual quality. They're going to be able to speak to the correct person at the correct time. So that will improve your customer service as well. Okay, so let's look at how we can set up our IVR. And in terms of the groups, so I mentioned here, for example, the sales group, all you have to do is go into the group settings, and then we can add the relevant users who are part of that particular queue group. So it's very easy to set that queue group up. We mentioned earlier on how we can connect the CRM system. So that's something to really think about. It can be customized in different ways, but essentially what we can do is when a lead comes, when somebody calls into the system, Bitrix is going to check to see if that person's number is already registered in the CRM system. Now, if it is, we can have that person's details come up on the call display, and I'll show you that in a second. Or what you can do, if that number is not already registered, we could have the option to automatically create a lead inside the CRM system. So that can be done automatically for you. Now, some businesses, they don't want that option, so we can turn that off. It's absolutely fine. You don't need to have that, but it's just an option there to think about. And what we can then also do is we can record calls in the CRM system. So here, save recording of calls. Let's tick that box. So what we can do now is have those calls recorded directly inside Bitrix. And what we can do here is we can play a warning message on inbound calls just to warn the customer that their call is going to be recorded. So that's a really useful feature. So especially in sales teams, you want to be able to listen back to the latest conversations that have taken place, turn on that call recording feature, and then we can have those calls recorded inside the system. Now, an additional feature, this is an additional paid for service, but it can be very popular for some businesses to have transcribing of calls. So if you want to, you could have those calls transcribed, and you can select the language that it will get transcribed into. That's an additional service. So you'll pay a fee for every transcription of calls inside the system. And we can also turn on access quality of service. So if you wanted to, at the end of the conversation, the customer can rate the call quality and service that they have been provided. Okay, moving on to working hours. So you might just want to have calls feed into Bitrix at certain times of the day if you've got working office hours. So you can add your hours into here. And then out of hours, we could have an uploaded message recorded to warn the customer that we're now out of hours. Or you might forward it to a specific number. Maybe someone works out of hours, and that could then be forwarded to a certain number that we add in here. So you can see here, as we have rented the number, there's a huge number of configurations that we can set up, from call routing to call recording to transcribing for an additional fee. There's lots of functionality that we have when we rent a Bitrix24 number. But obviously it's important, with all of the different configurations there, it is important you set permissions as to who's able to access that area and configure those access rights. So what we have here are roles. Okay, so based on the role of the user, we can then determine who has access to those different areas of the telephony settings module. So for example, if I click on the administrator role, we can have the option here for telephony settings. They have full access, where for really any other types of users, we would just deny access, so they're not able to go into the telephony settings area at all. So it's an important piece to point out there. We can set very granular permissions inside the system. Okay, so just to show you now, we've integrated a number. Let's just take a look at what that looks like on the front end of our Bitrix system. So we're going to have a client who is in the CRM system call into one of our rented numbers, and we're going to see that information pop up on the Bitrix portal. Okay, so we can see Samoon is calling our number, so the details have popped up, and I can answer, I could transfer the call, etc. through the Bitrix24 system. So it's a VoIP system. I can answer the call directly through the browser, and that call can then be recorded inside the CRM system. So we have that complete integration. And let's just go into the CRM system. And if we just go now back into our contacts, let's just go into Sam's profile page here. So this is the contact page inside the CRM system. We can see those call recordings. So we have the call recording set up, so I can play any of those calls.
Hello, it's just me.
Okay, so we have that complete integration. I can see the date, the time of the call. So you have all of that history. And I could call Sam directly through the client page as well. Okay, so you have really that complete integration. So inbound calls, outbound calls, the calls are recorded, all of that history is saved directly inside the contacts page. So it's a really useful functionality to have, and it's very simple to set that recording into the CRM system. Now, in terms of the CRM integration, there are other very useful features that are very heavily used inside call centers, especially outbound lead generating call centers. So say, for example, inside the CRM system, what you could do is you could set up call lists. So based on the leads we have in the system here, I might want to create a call list for our sales team to go through and call these leads at a specific time period. So what we can do inside here is I can select the leads that I want to add to the call list, and I can then select my action. So let's go and add this as a call list. And I'm now going to submit this to one of our sales staff. So I can select here the person who is going to be responsible for the call list. And then I can see their calendar. So I'm going to add this into tomorrow. Okay, so let's give the call list a title. Okay, so we can save that inside the system here. And then the sales rep, what they can do is they can go into their activities planner, and then they can see inside here, we can see all of the different activities that they have to complete. And I can go into tomorrow's calls, and we could see all of the activity inside the system here. And another way we could do this is we could just use the automatic dialing feature. So again, you could filter through your leads inside here. So essentially, we might want to pick based on maybe the source type, for example, or it could be based on the status of the lead. So you can customize here the different filters that you want to select for your list. And then based on this, I could just start dialing through the system and calling out like so. So you can create your call list and then call through here. It's not quite an automatic dialer. You do have to click the next button and then it will call that lead. So it's not quite an automated power dialer, but you do have the ability to create call lists, and then you can start dialing directly through the CRM system. Okay, so that is a look at our Bitrix24 telephony option. So the option there to rent a number directly through the Bitrix24 system. Now, we mentioned how calls are recorded in the CRM system. We also have this call details tab in the telephony module. And inside here, you can see all of the history of every single call. And the data here can be exported out of Excel. Okay, so that is the option one. So that is the renting of a Bitrix24 number. And then the other option essentially is an integration. So if you already have a phone provider that you're really happy with, maybe you've got a really good contract set up with them, which it goes on for several years, or maybe there's certain functionality that that phone provider offers, then you don't really want to have to go and rent a Bitrix24 number. You want to keep your existing number. So we have to then look at option two, which is an integration. So let's now take a look at some of the different ways we could integrate phone providers into the Bitrix24 system. Okay, so first of all, let's go back into our telephony module. So if you want to integrate an existing phone provider into Bitrix, let's just now go through the different options. So first of all, and the way we would first recommend is we need to check if we can use the Office or Cloud PBX connector. So essentially, if you have a private branch exchange, we can look to use one of these two options. Essentially, the only difference here is if you have it hosted locally or in the cloud for your PBX. So if we have a Cloud PBX, we can click on the Cloud PBX button. And essentially what we have now is the option to have using the SIP connector. So what we can do is use the Connect Cloud PBX form here. And what we can do is fill in the details. So for your Cloud PBX or your phone provider will be able to provide the information for this form here. We can then connect your Cloud PBX and it uses the SIP connector here. So what we have the option to do is when we have inputted those details, we have 60 minutes to configure and test outbound calls to make sure the connection has worked correctly. And what we have here, we receive inbound calls via the SIP connector. That's included within the package. Because what you do is once you've used that 60 minutes to test and it's working, you then need to buy the SIP connector to continue using the connection. So all of your lines are fed into Bitrix, and that SIP connector will cost $49 per month as a monthly fee to feed your phone lines into Bitrix. And if we just look at the Office PBX, again, it's exactly the same in terms of you get 60 minutes to test outbound calls, and the SIP connector will cost exactly the same. It's $49 a month. But with the Office PBX, the form is just slightly different because there are different parameters that need to be inputted onto the form. So we do that. Option one is using the Cloud or Office PBX to feed your phone lines into Bitrix. The second option that we have is what we can look to do is use an integration. So Bitrix24 has quite a few integrations with different phone providers that are available in the marketplace. So here underneath telephony integrations, here at the bottom of the telephony module, we can click on the apps button here, and this will open up all of the different phone providers that we have integrations with. Okay, so you have the option here to integrate a phone provider. So let's just say, for example, if we want to check Ring Central, then what we can do is we can search through the system here, and you can see we do have several integrations with Ring Central. So you can check using the marketplace to see if your phone provider has an integration in the marketplace. So here, for example, the Ring Central telephony integration app, this is available just to check, first of all, make sure you have a correct plan. So for example, here you need to have a commercial subscription of Bitrix24, and you need to have a premium or enterprise Ring Central plan. So you need to check if you meet each of the criteria that are needed for each application. So just something to bear in mind. But if you do, then you could use the application here. You can install this into your Bitrix, and that then allows you to integrate your phone lines with Bitrix24. So essentially that is the second option that you can test and use. The third option is essentially building a connection between Bitrix and your phone provider using the API. Now, that can be quite a costly implementation. It can cost anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000. So depending on the size of the organization, we have done that before, so it is possible, and that's an option that we could look at with you as well. So those are essentially three different options to integrate your existing phone lines. So using the Office or Cloud PBX, using an integration if your phone provider has one in the marketplace, or the third option is building a bespoke integration via the API. Okay, so that is a look at integrations. And we did have a question earlier on, are there call reports inside Bitrix? So we will be coming on to call reporting shortly. So we'll go through that shortly in the next aspect of today's webinar. Okay, so first, now let's just move on to look at some of the costs associated with Bitrix24 rented numbers. Okay, so as we mentioned, in terms of renting a Bitrix24 number, you are going to pay approximately $4 to $6 per month to rent a Bitrix24 number. There could also be a connection fee, so that's something else to bear in mind. And then inbound calls are included within the call connection rate there, or if you want to, you can, for outbound calls, you would pay per minute based on the country that you are calling to. So that is something you do need to bear in mind. If you're going to do a lot of outbound calling and it's to different countries, do just check, and we will add the call rates into the Zoom box at the end of today's webinar. Check to see how much that's going to cost you per week, per month, to make sure you can budget for those outbound calls. In terms of other costs, so away from renting a Bitrix number, if you're going to use the SIP connector to connect your existing phone lines into Bitrix, that SIP connector will cost $49 per month. But then there are no other charges. You don't pay for outbound calls. You're not charged for inbound calls. You just continue with the existing contract that you have with your phone provider. In terms of integrations, so most of the integrations in the marketplace are free of charge, but do just double check. It will tell you in the market app if there is a charge for the integration. And if you're going to look at an API, a bespoke integration, that would look in the region of $10,000 to $15,000 for an integration there. Okay, so moving on now, as we had a question earlier on, let's have a look at reporting inside the telephony module. So inside the telephony module here, as we did briefly look at this, we do have a call details area. So every single call that gets logged inside the Bitrix system, you will see that inside here, and you can create filters. So if you wanted to filter down onto maybe the employee who was responsible for the calls, you can drill down into any of this data. So there's lots of ways you could filter through this information. And you can actually customize here the actual UI. So if you want to change the layout or even what columns of data you want to show, you can customize here the actual UI of this information. And as we say, the information you could export out of Bitrix. But what we also have is the ability to create dashboard reports as well. So here we can create call statistic reports. So this will analyze based on the information we input here in the filters. So for example, if we wanted to look at the last year of calls, I could create that as a filter here, and then we can analyze all of the call history and distribution of calls across our employee database. Or maybe if I wanted to look at the call density, if over the last year, for example, I might want to see actually when are we most busiest with inbound calls, so I can then schedule staff accordingly. We can then analyze that data here. Okay, so we can see here around 5 to 6 p.m. on a Monday, we have quite a lot of missed calls. So this could be really useful for scheduling purposes. We need to schedule more staff at this time period. So some of these reports here, very high level dashboard reports, they give you very valuable information in a really quick and easily formatted way to analyze. And then we also can create call performance reports on each individual employee. So if we wanted to look at maybe all of the call durations over the last year, let's see the average call duration amongst all of the team, we can set up reports for this information as well, or maybe the average call duration. So you can see here, you can create very high level dashboard reports based on the call statistics that we have inside our Bitrix system. Okay, so in summary, in today's Total Telephony webinar, we've seen how we can set up a virtual phone system by renting a Bitrix24 number. And we've seen how detailed we can make that virtual phone system using IVR menus, setting up call recording, and then seeing all of that integration with the CRM system. It becomes a really encompassing CRM when we have the integration with the telephony module. We've seen how we can use integrations such as RingCentral as an integrator, or we could look at the other 27 applications inside the marketplace where there are phone providers that you're able to integrate. Or we could look to use the SIP connector to feed your existing phone lines into Bitrix. And then we've just seen there the reporting features, so we can see all the details of every single call. And then we can use the call reporting tools to create high-level dashboard reports based on the information from our telephony module. And it's also into a low setup cost. If you're going to rent a Bitrix number, you're looking at $46 per month to rent that number, and then you're good to go. You can start calling through the system. So there's not too much in terms of setup and capital if you're going to rent a Bitrix24 number. Okay, so here are a selection of our up and coming webinars. We're here every other Tuesday at 11 AM EST. If you'd like to register for our up and coming webinars, please do visit us intraface.com/webinars, and you can register through our website. Thank you very much for your time today on today's Total Telephony webinar. I hope you found that useful. If you do have any other questions before our next webinar, you can contact us, sales@intraface.com, and one of our team will be happy to set up a call with you to discuss your needs and requirements in more detail. Thank you very much for your time today, and bye for now.